On Christmas Eve, I stood outside my mother's house, the house I had kept alive for years, and watched it glow like a magazine spread. Because inside the table was full. My mother, my brother, his fiancée, her parents, even distant cousins, they all had a chair. But me. There was no room for me. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from today? And tell me, if your own mother told you, there's no seat for you at Christmas dinner, would you still pay her mortgage? My name is Tiffany. I'm 34 years old. I work as a digital marketing strategist. For years I've lived in a modest apartment, not because I couldn't afford better, but because I was carrying someone else's burden. That someone was my mother, Catherine. There was a time when she packed my school lunches with handwritten notes, when she smiled at my drawings and promised me I'd do great things. But somewhere between my father's sudden death and my brother Daniel's first promotion, something shifted. Maybe it was grief. Maybe it was favoritism that had always been there finally stepping into the light. Or maybe I just became inconvenient. When Dad passed away, Mom struggled to keep up with the mortgage. I didn't even think twice. I stepped in not once, not just during emergencies. I set up an automatic transfer that covered the full payment every single month. For 6 years. While Daniel traveled, worked on himself, and posted pictures of ski trips in Aspen, I kept a roof over my mother's head. He never said thank you. She never said thank you. But back then I told myself it didn't matter. I was doing the right thing. I was being a good daughter. Or so I thought. A week before Christmas, Daniel called me. His voice was casual, like he was talking about the weather. Hey, just wanted to let you know dinner will be kind of tight this year. Mom's having Samantha's family over. You understand, right? It's just a lot. I stayed silent. He filled the pause with that infuriating laugh of his. You know what Mom said? It's too much for Tiffany anyway. She's not great with crowds. Too much for me. The woman whose Christmas bonus last year went directly into repairing her boiler. Too much for me. The daughter who spent New Year's Day cleaning her attic while Daniel was drinking champagne in Prague. I bit my tongue then, but those words lodged themselves in me like shards of glass. And now here I was, outside, breath fogging up the window as I looked in. The golden light washed over faces that used to be my family. Toasts were made. Wine was poured. Daniel's fiancée leaned into him, her diamond ring catching the candlelight. In my chair. Or maybe it had never been said at all. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass. 6 years of payments, 6 years of responsibility, 6 years of invisibility. And all it earned me was the role of ghost at my own family's table. That night something shifted. Not loud, not explosive, just a quiet, steady resolve. I wasn't going to keep paying for their comfort. I wasn't going to keep buying a seat at a table where there was no room for me. Let Daniel play the man of the house. Let him learn what bills and taxes taste like. I walked back to my car, pulled out my phone and turned off the automatic transfer. It felt like unclenching a fist I had kept closed for years. And then, almost on instinct, I opened a new tab and searched. Professional camera deals. For once, I wasn't going to buy another month of someone else's security. I was going to buy myself a gift. Something that was mine. A camera to capture the life I was going to start living. Not the one I had been trapped in. But as I sat there in the driver's seat, engine humming in the cold December night, another thought flickered through me. This couldn't end with silence. If they had erased me from the Christmas table, if they had chosen to make me invisible, then I would leave them something they couldn't ignore. I didn't know it yet, but the decision I made that night would echo through their perfect little dinner parties. Because next Christmas morning, there would be a package waiting at my mother's door. And when she opened it, her scream would rattle the neighborhood. When I turned off the autopay on my mother's mortgage, I expected to feel guilt. Instead, I felt light. Like I had just taken off a coat that had been strangling me for years. That night, I bought myself something I had wanted for a long time but always put off. A professional camera. Black, sleek, with lenses that could capture the world in detail. Not the kind of purchase a responsible daughter would make. But for once, I wasn't interested in responsibility. I was interested in freedom. The next morning, I packed a small bag. While Catherine was probably setting the table with Samantha's family, I was booking a one-way ticket south. Somewhere warm. Somewhere far from snow and obligation. Airports have a strange magic. They hum with possibility, with stories beginning and ending. I sat by the window at my gate, camera box on my lap, and realized this was the first time in 6 years that I was traveling for myself. Not for work. Not to bail anyone out. Not to clean up another mess. As the plane took off, I looked down at the tiny rows of houses, wondering if my mother was still sipping wine, laughing, completely unaware that the ground beneath her was about to shift. It's funny, the things you remember when you're thousands of feet above the earth. I remembered being 16, watching Daniel unwrap his first car, a shiny used Honda that Mom called a miracle of timing. My gift that year had been bus passes. She said it would make me responsible. I remembered Christmas during my college years. Daniel came home drunk one night, crashing into a neighbor's fence. Catherine brushed it off as boys being boys. The same woman who called me irresponsible when I came home 5 minutes past curfew. I remembered Dad's voice on his last Christmas with us, low and steady as he squeezed my hand. "Look after your mom, Tiffany. She'll need you." I did. God, I did. And she still erased me from the table. By the time I landed, my phone was buzzing nonstop. A text from Daniel. "Hey, did you forget to pay this month? Landlord called Mom. She's freaking out." Another from Catherine. "Tiffany, I don't know what's going on, but this isn't funny. We had people over. You embarrassed me." Embarrassed her. Not protected her. Not saved her. Embarrassed her. I turned my phone face down on the nightstand and walked out onto the balcony. The air was heavy with salt and heat, the complete opposite of the sharp winter I had left behind. Waves crashed against the shore, and I let the rhythm of the ocean replace the frantic buzz of notifications. For once, their panic wasn't my problem. That night in my hotel, I lay on the bed with the ceiling fan humming above me. I pulled the camera out of its box and snapped a photo of the view. Palm trees bending under the weight of the wind, neon lights from a street market below. I stared at the photo for a long time. It wasn't just an image, it was proof. Proof that I could choose myself. Proof that I could be the center of my own story. And yet, somewhere beneath that sense of freedom, guilt tried to creep in. My mind replayed Catherine's voice, Daniel's text, Dad's dying request. "Look after her. Look after her. Look after her." I squeezed the camera harder. What about me, Dad? Who was supposed to look after me? I didn't answer their calls. Not that night. Not the next day. I woke with the sunrise, walked barefoot on the beach, filmed the waves rolling in and out. I bought street food, laughed with strangers, and captured moments I hadn't allowed myself to see in years. But every time I checked my phone, the guilt trap messages were waiting. "Daniel, seriously, this isn't okay. You've always handled this stuff. Just fix it." Catherine, "Tiffany, the landlord is being unreasonable. Call him, please. Just talk to him." The same pattern over and over. Their crisis. My responsibility. Their mistakes. My correction. But this time I stayed silent. On the third night, as I sat on my balcony listening to the waves, I received a voicemail. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. Catherine's voice filled the room. At first it was angry, then desperate, and finally, unhinged. "Tiffany, what did you do? That package, how could you? How could you send something like that? They're all talking. Do you have any idea what you've done?" My stomach tightened. She had opened it. And just as I set my phone down, I couldn't help but smile. Because this Christmas, for the first time in years, it wasn't me screaming into the void. It was her. The voicemail still echoed in my ears long after I set the phone down. My mother's voice wasn't just angry, it was shaken. It was the kind of scream that made neighbors draw their curtains, the kind of scream people whispered about later. If you were erased from your family's Christmas table, would you stay silent? Or would you send a gift they could never forget? I wasn't there when she found it. But I know Catherine well enough to imagine it. It was early morning, frost still clinging to the edges of her porch. She stepped outside in her robe, coffee steaming in her hand, and noticed the package sitting neatly against the doorframe. Brown paper tied with twine, no return address. She bent down, muttering about delivery mix-ups. But when she tore through the wrapping and lifted the lid, the coffee mug slipped from her hand and shattered on the porch. Inside was a photograph. A picture of Daniel and me as children, sitting on our father's lap in front of the Christmas tree. But I had cut myself out, cleanly, ruthlessly. Only Daniel remained, beaming with the innocence of a boy who had no idea he'd always be the favored one. On the back, in my handwriting, were the words, "Tipki bu photograph Jibby, you erased me from the table. Now I erase myself from you." And beneath the photo folded carefully was something else. A letter. Her hands must have trembled as she unfolded it. My father's voice, preserved in ink, spoken from years ago. Catherine, if anything ever happens to me, promise me one thing. Look after Tiffany. She's strong, but she'll need you. She'll need her mother. The sound that tore out of her throat must have rattled the entire block. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains. A dog barked. Somewhere across the street, an old man shuffled outside in his slippers, asking if everything was all right. But nothing was all right. Because Catherine wasn't just holding paper. She was holding proof. Proof that she had failed. Proof that she had betrayed the very promise my father had trusted her with. Daniel arrived first, Samantha just behind him. They found her crouched on the porch, clutching the cut photo in one hand and the letter in the other, sobbing like the world had ended. Samantha knelt beside her, confused. Daniel picked up the pieces, his face draining of color as he read the letter. What is this?" he demanded, though he already knew. Mom's only response was a broken cry. She sent it. Tiffany sent it. Meanwhile, I was on a balcony thousands of miles away, sipping coconut water and pointing my new camera at the ocean. The waves crashed, relentless, like they had been waiting for me all along. My phone buzzed on the table. A string of messages lit up the screen. "Daniel, what the hell did you send Mom?" "Daniel again, she's hysterical. Do you think this is funny? Catherine, you're cruel. Heartless. How could you use your father's words against me?" I pressed record on my camera and filmed the horizon the way the sun lit the water in gold. Their panic was a storm, but for the first time I wasn't standing in the rain. Daniel wasn't the type to let silence sit. He called me 5 times in a row, each one angrier than the last. Finally I answered, not out of obligation but because I wanted to hear him squirm. "Tiffany, what is wrong with you?" His voice cracked with fury. "You sent her Dad's letter? A cut-up photo? She's losing it over here." I stayed quiet for a long moment, listening to the sound of the ocean behind me. Finally I said, "Good." "What do you mean good?" His words came out sharp, panicked. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I leaned back in my chair, letting the warm breeze wash over me. "I reminded her," I said softly. "Reminded her of what?" "That once upon a time Dad trusted her with me. And she failed." There was silence on the line. For once, Daniel didn't have a comeback ready. Finally his voice came back, low and dangerous. "You've gone too far this time, Tiffany. You've humiliated her. You've humiliated all of us. I'm not going to let this slide." And before I could respond, he hung up. I stared at the phone, the dial tone humming like a warning. But instead of fear I felt something else. Relief. Because for the first time they were the ones unraveling, while I, camera in hand, was finally free. What I didn't know then was that their panic was only beginning. When Daniel hung up on me, his words echoed longer than they should have. "I'm not going to let this slide." I set the phone down and laughed, quiet, almost bitter. For years I had been the one sliding things under the rug, covering their mistakes, carrying their weight. And now, suddenly, my refusal to do so was the unforgivable crime. The next day Catherine's tone shifted. No more rage, no more shouting. Instead my voicemail filled with sighs, sobs and carefully chosen words. "Tiffany, I don't understand why you're doing this. You've always been my rock. Please don't abandon me now." Another, "That letter, you twisted it. You know your father loved you, but this is just spite. You don't mean it, do you?" And then, "I'm your mother. You can't just cut me out. Family doesn't work that way." But family, as she defined it, had always been a one-way street. Her needs were urgent. Mine were invisible. Her comfort mattered. Mine was expendable. I stopped listening after the third message. If Catherine tried guilt, Daniel chose aggression. Text after text, his words spat like bullets. "You humiliated her. She's sick of. You think you're better than us now? Dad would be ashamed." That last one almost worked. For a second my chest tightened, the memory of Dad's voice telling me to look after Mom circling in my head. But then I remembered the letter. His words written down. His plea hadn't been to erase myself for her. It had been for her to cherish me. And she didn't. So I didn't reply. Then there was Samantha. She didn't text me directly, but her silence was its own message. Instead, I heard about her through Daniel's frantic voicemails. "She's upset, Tiffany. She thinks you've poisoned the family with drama. She doesn't want to come around anymore. She says this isn't her fight. I smiled at that. Because for the first time, Daniel's perfect little fiancé wasn't impressed by his golden boy act. Maybe she saw the cracks. Maybe she realized marrying into our family meant inheriting a storm. And storms have a way of destroying illusions. I spent those days walking along beaches, my camera strapped around my neck, capturing moments that were finally mine. Street vendors frying plantains. Children chasing kites in the wind. The ocean foaming against black rocks. Every photo reminded me of one truth. Silence was more powerful than sacrifice. When I sacrificed, they ignored me. When I was silent, they panicked. It was almost intoxicating, watching them unravel from a distance, their frantic attempts to drag me back into the cage. On the fourth day, I finally answered one of Daniel's calls. His voice was sharp, like he'd rehearsed his anger in a mirror. Do you think this is some kind of game? Mom hasn't eaten in 2 days. He sits in that house crying. You broke her, Tiffany. I let the silence stretch, then said, No, Daniel. She broke herself a long time ago. I just stopped covering the cracks. He sputtered. You can't talk to her like that. She's your mother. And I was her daughter, I snapped, my voice steady for the first time. But she didn't treat me like one. He treated me like an ATM, a maid, a backup plan. And you were the golden child who got to shine while I carried the weight. There was a pause. I imagined his face tightening the way it did when he was cornered. Finally, he said softer now, we didn't know you were doing all that. I almost laughed. You didn't want to know. Then he hung up. That night, I returned to my hotel room, sunburned from hours in the open air, tired but lighter than I had felt in years. I brewed tea, opened my balcony doors and let the sea air fill the room. But when I turned back toward the table, I saw it. A new message notification. Not from Daniel. Not another guilt-ridden voicemail. It was a picture of my apartment door. And standing in front of it, wrapped in her winter coat, eyes hollow but determined, was Catherine. He had come to me. When I saw the photo Catherine had sent, her standing at my apartment door, I froze. It wasn't rage I felt. Not fear either. It was something harder to define. A weight I had carried for years suddenly shifting, daring me to decide. Would I open the door and let her back into the cycle? Or would I let the silence stand? The knock came 20 minutes later. Soft, hesitant. I opened the door. There she was. Catherine. My mother. Her hair was pulled back, no makeup, scarf wrapped tight against the December wind. But it wasn't the cold that had carved lines into her face. It was recognition. Regret. Maybe both. I didn't know, she whispered. Didn't know what? My voice came out steadier than I expected. That you were doing all of it. The mortgage. Faxes. The repairs. Daniel told me. Samantha told me. But I thought you were just helping. I leaned against the frame, arms crossed. No, Mom. He thought I was disposable. That I'd keep paying, keep fixing, keep staying invisible. And you didn't have to thank me. You didn't even have to notice. You just had to look the other way. She flinched. You're right. Her eyes filled as she clutched her purse. That letter from your father. I couldn't bear it. Reading his words after all these years. He trusted me with you. And I failed. Silence stretched between us, heavy and raw. For years I had wanted her to admit it, and now, hearing it, I didn't feel triumph. Felt tired. I didn't appreciate you, she said. I thought you were strong enough that you didn't need it. That you'd always be fine. But you weren't. And I didn't see it. I took a breath, the air sharp in my lungs. No, you saw it. You just didn't care enough to change. Her shoulders slumped, as though every ounce of denial had finally drained out. What happens now? She asked quietly. I shook my head. I'm not coming back to fix things, Mom. I meant what I wrote. You're on your own. She nodded, lips trembling, but she didn't argue. For once, she didn't twist my words into guilt. But maybe, I added, we can start small. If you actually mean what you said. If you can see me, not as a wallet, not as a safety net, but as your daughter. Her eyes searched mine, but I didn't give her more than that. Because this time I wasn't here to make it easy. She left quietly, no demands, no pleas. Just a final glance over her shoulder, as though she was trying to memorize my face in case she never saw it again. I closed the door gently and leaned against it, my breath shuddering out. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel cruel. I felt like a room that had finally been aired out after years of dust. For the first time, the air was mine to breathe. The following weeks were different. Catherine managed her own bills. Daniel stopped calling, his perfect little life suddenly less shiny without me propping it up. Samantha drifted further away from him, maybe realizing that golden boys don't shine so brightly when the spotlight isn't stolen from someone else. Me. I kept filming. My walls filled with photos. Sunsets, strangers, little moments of joy. For once, the frames weren't filled with ghosts of responsibility. They were filled with me. The cut photo I had sent Catherine haunted me less with each passing day. Because the truth was, I wasn't the one erased. I had simply stepped out of a picture that no longer deserved me. On Christmas Day, I brewed tea in my apartment, no twinkling lights, no clinking glasses, no forced laughter. Just peace. And as I lifted my camera, capturing the quiet glow of morning through my window, I whispered to myself, this Christmas I didn't buy them comfort. I gave myself freedom.